You're listening to a CNA podcast.
Did you know that about 1,900 freshwater crabs belonging to 3 species only found in Singapore have been successfully bred in captivity, and some of them have since been released back to their natural habitats to boost their fragile population? It's a rare success story in a country where urbanisation has uprooted native species that used to call our skies, lands and waterways home. Hello everyone, it's me, Liling Tan, on this episode of Climate Conversations. It's just me here today because Jack is on an adventure across the concrete tundra of New York City. But I am not alone, and neither am I talking to myself. With me in the studio are Mr. Hwee, who is chair of the Vertebrate Study Group at Nature Society Singapore. Also here with us is Mr. Cheong, former chair of the Nature Society Singapore's Bird Division, and now part of its executive committee. They're here to talk about some of Singapore's citizen creatures on the brink and those that have beaten the odds of extinction, at least for now. That's the sound of the Raffles banded langur. The critically endangered monkey was spotted recently on an eco-bridge in Singapore. The notoriously shy primate was caught on video, a sign that the species may be expanding its habitat range. At last count, in 2021, there were only 68 of them left on the island. They've hardly been seen for decades. Suay knows the history well.
In the mid-80s, all the nature lovers think that it's only one troop left in Bukit Timah Nature Reserve. And then in the 1987, the last one of the banded langurs was killed by a dog. And he's too old to climb up the tree.
Oh no.
Yeah, but fortunately, just 1 year before that happened, the new troop was discovered near Upper Seletar Reservoir area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And part of the reason why the animal was so shy and run away from people is that in the early 70s, the double barrel still allowed for those with farmland. So during that time, still a lot of hunting going on. Not only banded langur, any monkey, any civet, or even the flying foxes. Rifle banded langurs is only limited to southern Johor and Singapore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very small number.
A lot of these species that are at risk is a result of their habitat loss. Another species that is under a lot of threat that we're seeing as critically endangered in the NParks Red Data book. Our native squirrels, right? Suay, there's a whole bunch of them that are critically endangered, and some also possibly considered extinct. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these squirrel species that we may never see again?
The first one I consider as extinct is the red giant flying squirrel. The last confirmed sighting was 1986.
86 means less than 30
slightly less than 40 years. For us, if it's 50 year no record, we then consider it as extinct.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very close. So if still no record, we will just put it as extinct.
What are some of the species you've seen that
are
not
the
extinct?
Cream-colored giant squirrel also considered as extinct. I'm the one that last seen them. The person that last seeing them in 1995.
You saw the last cream-colored...
Last two, a pair. Was a pair.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
The last record, confirmed sighting.
And those are very pretty, right? I've seen pictures of them. It's like a whole solid cream color. It's really quite stunning. Wow, that's a shame. What about you, Cheong? What about the birds? Quite a lot of birds are critically endangered, right?
In the most recent edition of the Singapore Red Data book, there are easily about 40 over species that are critically endangered. Due to habitat loss, so their population size is very small.
So when you say 40 species, you're talking about 40 species of birds, right?
Yeah,
not
birds,
overall, right?
Yeah.
Which ones are you most worried about?
One of them would be the ruddy kingfisher. We do see the migratory subspecies now and then, but it's the resident species that I'm worried about because it really occurs in very small numbers, very rarely seen, and now you can only find it on Pulau Ubin. You can't find it elsewhere. And even then, it's very difficult to find. So we're not sure whether the population can continue to survive there, whether the population number is viable for reproduction and continued existence. So that's one area to watch and to continue to protect the habitat on Pulau Ubin. And others will be like the Malaysian plover. It's a very interesting species because this species prefers sandy habitats. But in Singapore, sandy habitats, sandy beaches are used by human beings.
Right.
So to the birds, it's a disturbed place. They don't like it. They don't go there. So end up, they adapt and they use rocky breakwaters. So we see them in rocky areas in the southern islands as well as some parts of Singapore.
So they feed on the coast, they breed on the coast, and they nest on the coast.
Yeah.
So where do they nest on the breakwaters then?
They just lay their eggs on the rocks.
Doesn't that make them vulnerable to predators and all that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so their eggs are camouflage, similar color to the rocks, but because it's open space, so when the chicks move about, anytime there's movement, they may be detected.
Okay.
So we do have documentation of the chick of the Malaysian plover being taken by house crows.
Oh, those crows.
Yes,
those
house
evil
crows.
crows.
Yeah, those non-native
Yeah.
house crows. So that's why we need to manage these non-native birds so that our native birds got a chance to survive.
Why don't these Malaysian plovers and other birds, why are they adapting instead of just flying off to another island? I mean, they can fly unlike the Raffles banded langur or the freshwater crabs. Why don't birds just fly somewhere else?
Because it takes energy for them to fly and look
Right.
around for somewhere suitable. So if they can find somewhere nearby, that will save them the energy. And energy is survival for animals.
Yeah.
The least energy they expend, the more chances of survival for them.
One of the birds you were telling me about earlier is a great-billed heron also.
Yes, great-billed heron is a big bird. It's even bigger than the grey heron that people are more familiar with. It likes small islands. So it used to be that to see this bird, we have to take a boat to the southern islands, be it Semakau or Sisters Island. And even in the whole of peninsular Malaysia, it is very rare. Whereas in Singapore now, the population in the southern islands have reproduced and increased, and now they are spread to main island of Singapore. So in areas like Sungai Buloh, you can see them, Labrador, you can see them, and also in northern areas like Pulau Ubin, sometimes Changi, you also can see them. So we see that this is something that's good, that this species is adapting and increasing in numbers.
So that it's not all bad news. We had also touched on the Malaysian eared nightjar earlier. That one is bad news, right?
Yeah, that is bad news because this is a forest bird and used to be seen at the forest edges of the Central Catchment Nature Reserve. Yeah, but in the last 10 over years, there are no records. Yeah, so it may be gone already.
That's a shame. These are very interesting looking birds as well. They make quite an interesting bird call too.
Yes.
And they kind of blend in, right, to the environment.
Yes, they're very well
look-
camouflaged.
They're very, very well camouflaged. So basically it's habitat loss lah.
Yeah, habitat loss, small population size which may not be viable.
Have you seen these species that are now extinct?
The most memorable one is probably the ruddy kingfisher that we talked about earlier. Yeah, it's so rare that I've only seen it once.
When did you see it?
I saw it a few years ago.
Oh, only a few years ago. Well, that's good, right?
Yes, that means it's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in Ubin.
Ubin, yeah, Ubin, yes.
Yeah, because the previous record was, I think, Tekong only.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was in the 80s or 90s.
That gives some hope, right? To show that what we're doing might be moving the needle a bit and doing some good for some of these species, even if we can't do much about the ones that are already extinct. Earlier, we talked about a lot of these natural habitats are being replaced by buildings, factories, offices, schools, transport networks, the MRT system. That is very important. But how do we strike the balance?
There are areas that's reclaimed. They are left there to settle before development. So during that period of time, which is usually actually more than 10 years, there's sufficient time for scrubland to develop and sometimes maybe even woodland. And also sometimes there's ponding that occurs over there and this attracts water birds like ducks. So what we can do to ameliorate the development and the clearing of habitats is to allow these areas to continue to be wild as long as they are not needed. so that wildlife has some space to go to.
So we're relocating.
It's like we developed quite a few places and other places we leave fallow. So those that we leave fallow, try to leave them as it is.
Okay.
So that wildlife can move in, have a place to stay, at least temporarily. Really, yeah.
That's why we sometimes like to convince a developer or the government when they are setting out some town and then incorporated this nature area into their town park. In that sense, to preserve it.
Are developers open to this? I mean, do you get pushback more now or less now than before?
No, this got to be in the planning stage. So you have to convince the government that is important. It's good to be incorporated into the development.
Singapore is so small in the grand scheme of things, right? Our conservation efforts can't really have that much impact in terms of like restoring biodiversity or striking the ecological balance. So why do it though? Why do it?
Well, in a way, on a grand scheme of things, you're right that Singapore is so small, so whatever we do actually doesn't have that much of an impact. Okay, but then human beings or human society is divided along country lines. So the way we manage habitat is also along country lines. So being party to the Convention on Biological Diversity, every country has to do their part to conserve or preserve certain percentage of the land as natural areas so that biodiversity has a chance to survive and thrive. Yeah, so that's why we need to do our part. It's also to send a statement to everyone else around the world that, hey, even though we are small, we are doing something. And actually, we do have endemic species or nearly endemic species in Singapore, like the freshwater crab, like the Raffles banded langur. So actually what we do does have an impact for this endemic or nearly endemic species.
Endemic means only found in our country. So once that one is gone means total loss to the whole world.
It's very heartbreaking.
Important, correct.
Very sympathy.
So I think the MPark is also going into the right direction, that they are trying to connect up all our nature area so that there are no isolation area that the animal cannot cross. So they're trying to link up all our green area that animal can cross to each other.
So they don't get run over, is it?
No, don't get run over is one thing, but then to have the more connection together, then will cut down the island effect. Island effect means that too small a population that it can't survive in the long term.
So it's isolated
Right.
now.
Inbreeding, this kind of problem.
And that causes a lot of genetic issues as well. What is one species, one endemic or local species that's become nationally extinct that you would like to see?
For birds, it will be the white-bellied woodpecker. And why is because it's a large bird and it has black and white color, quite distinctive. And woodpecker is not like normal birds, the way they perch. They hang vertically on a tree trunk. Yeah, so in a way, they move about in a special manner.
Have you ever seen one?
Only in Malaysia.
Okay.
I have seen a few times in Singapore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Decades
you know,
ago.
How long ago?
Malaysia side also have a lot of deforestation. So up to this day, sometimes we still get the vagrants from Malaysia side. But the one that I've seen is native, that is in central catchment area. I've seen it in the 90s.
How big is it?
I think it's about...
Oh, wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
That's-
this height.
He's holding up his hand. Like,
Yeah,
what?
close,
That's 1.5 feet.
close to 50 centimeters, yeah.
This
That's
is
massive.
the second largest woodpecker we have.
What's the largest one?
The slatty,
Great slaty woodpecker.
great slatty woodpecker.
It was extinct, but then one or two came back to visit us.
How do you tell when one of these birds are visiting versus like a native, somebody who lives here?
So basically, if it's native, it should be present throughout the year. But if it's extinct and gone already, and then we see one for a day or two, then it disappears. So it's likely to be a visitor from southern Johor.
Okay.
For us, the problem is how to distinguish it as a native or introduced, or pet, from the pets population.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
People keep-
challenge to us.
people keep endemic.
People used to, by the slow lorries, people used to keep them also illegally. And
The
then
what?
once
The-
slow lorries.
What is that?
It's a mammal,
primate.
small cute
It's
mammal.
a primate.
Oh, a small cute little.
Nocturnal.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, the one with the big eyes.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that one's very cute.
Yes.
I'd probably.
That's why people
keep
keep them as pets.
Yeah, I probably would too, unfortunately. But yeah, so that one, okay. So that one you do see, but you don't know whether it's introduced, it's a pet, or it's a native species.
It's hard to distinguish them whether it's a genuine native or not.
Suay, Hwee, what is an extinct species you want to see come back that you'd be really, really excited about?
Tiger. Just joking. Yeah, it can't survive in Singapore.
I'm not
Sorry,
so sure
it's too
other
small.
people would share that excitement. No, seriously though, what would you like to see?
Let me think. So the one that I really want to see is a red giant flying squirrel. We have two other extant species still in our forest, but this one, partly because of the bigger animal, need bigger piece of habitats.
Yeah.
So nesting is a problem. Some of these animals need to nest in a hole, but we don't have big tree hole for them to nest, like the hornbill.
Earlier we talked about the crabs, and people are asking me whether these freshwater crabs can be eaten. Can or not?
Too small to be consumed. And too hard to find them. They only live in the rocky area of our hill.
Okay, in the streams, in like
Yes,
Bukit
freshwater
Timah,
stream.
Bukit Batok, Bukit Gombak.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, so cannot eat.
If you want, you can eat it.
No,
but
no, I
then it's not worth the effort. Not worth the effort.
And they are protected by law.
Yeah, also protected
Yes.
by law. You don't want to end up in the jail.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. And that was Mr. Suay Hwee, who is the chair of the Vertebrate Study Group at Nature Society Singapore. And thank you, Mr. Tan Kim Cheong, who is former chair of the Bird Division at Nature Society. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
For those of you listening in, thank you so much. I hope you learned something new today, as I did, about Singapore's native species and their fight for survival in this urban landscape. Do join us again on Thursday for our next episode of Climate Conversations, when Jack will be back.